can you explain who has paid for Rudy Giuliani's legal fees, international travel, and other expenses in his capacity as President Trump's attorney and representative?
The short answer to the question is, I don't know who's paying Rudy Giuliani's fees. If other clients are paying and subsidizing his work in that respect, it raises profound questions.
It's a little bit ironic to me that you're going to be questioning conversations with foreign governments about investigations when three of you, three members of the Senate, they wrote the letter to the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, and their concern was ongoing investigations and whether the Mueller team was getting appropriate responses from Ukraine regarding investigations of what? The President of the United States.
There have been a lot of attacks on my staff. And as I said when this issue came up earlier, I'm appalled at some of the smearing of the professional people that work for the Intelligence Committee. And I will not dignify those smears on my staff by giving them any credence whatsoever. Nor will I share any information that I believe could or could not lead to the identification of the whistleblower.
Mr. Schiff put the whistleblower issue front and center with his own words during the course of their investigation. Retribution is what is prohibited under the statute. But this idea that there's complete anonymity, and I'm not saying that we should disclose the individual's name and you handle that in executive session or any way you'd want, but we can't just say it's not a relevant inquiry.
Are there legitimate circumstances under which a president could request a foreign country to investigate a U.S. citizen, including a political rival, who is not under investigation by the U.S. government?
It would be hard for me to contemplate circumstances where that would be appropriate, where it would be appropriate for the President of the United States to seek a political investigation of an opponent.
Is there any situation where it might be legitimate to ask for an investigation overseas? Yes, if there was a conduct by a U.S. person overseas that potentially violated the law of that country, but didn't violate the law of this country, but there was a national interest in having some information about that and understanding what went on, then it would be perfectly legitimate to suggest this is something worth looking into.
Will the President assure the American public that private citizens will not be directed to conduct American foreign policy or national security policy unless they have been specifically and formally designated by the President and the State Department to do so?
There was no conduct of foreign policy being carried on here by a private person. Ambassador Volker was clear that he understood Mr. Giuliani just to be a source of information for the President and someone who knew about Ukraine and someone who spoke to the President.
Compare the bipartisanship in the Nixon, Clinton, and Trump impeachment proceedings.
The parties were as dug in as parties are today. The Republicans and Democrats saw it differently. But as the evidence emerged, a bipartisan consensus emerged on the committee. They couldn't turn away from the evidence that their president had committed abuse of power, cheat in the election, and that they had to vote to impeach him.
Would you please respond to the question on bipartisanship by Senator Alexander and any assertions the House managers made in response to any of the previous questions?
In the Nixon case, the authorizing resolution, this is in the House to authorize the inquiry, was passed by a vote of 410 to 4. 410 voted in favor of the inquiry, only 4 voted against. In the Clinton authorizing resolution, 31 Democrats joined 227 Republicans voting in favor of authorizing that inquiry. That was substantial bipartisan support to authorize the inquiry. In this case, House Resolution 660 had bipartisan opposition. The votes in favor of the resolution were 231 Democrats and 1 independent. The opposition was all Republicans, 194, plus 2 Democrats, voting against.
Why should this body not call Ambassador Bolton?
Because whatever is accepted in this case becomes the new normal for every impeachment proceeding in the future. And then this chamber will have to be issuing the subpoenas and dealing with that. And that's not the way that this chamber should allow impeachments to be presented to it.
How would the verdict in this trial alter the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches in the future?
The final judgment of acquittal would be the best thing for our country. So the only appropriate result that won't damage our country horribly, maybe forever, but certainly for generations, is a verdict of acquittal.
But if we hold that a president can defy all subpoenas, can tie up the Congress endlessly with bad faith claims of privilege, claiming here one thing, claiming in court something else, it will eviscerate our oversight power.